2 years ago, at one of the worst points in my life, I made the most horrific Warhammer model ever made. A demon engine Nurgle tank with eyes and teeth and arm cannons and tentacles and buttholes for doors. And even more bizarrely, this silly conversion that used bits of a Hulk toy and the cheapest dental crowns money can buy, that video has been watched over 1 million times, making it one of my channel's most successful videos, but also, stranger still, making it probably one of the most recognisable custom Warhammer models in the world. And that's the perfect reason to totally destroy it and start again, right? My name's Guy, you're watching Midwinter Minis. This video has been kindly sponsored by RAVAGED, Star, and even though I think most people would be pretty happy with this horrible Nurgle Land Raider if they made it, it never really felt done to me. I obviously made this for a video on YouTube, grinding out that fun, approachable, but slightly eccentric hobby content that people have grown to know and enjoy my channel for, but it was made to a schedule, 3 or 4 days to conceptualize, plan, build, customize, and paint a model, all while filming and documenting the process, and then a couple of days to plan, script, and actually edit the video. Now, I'm no stranger to painting things fast, that's one of the main things I do on this channel, but it was still a pretty big challenge to get this thing done on time. And while I definitely use lots of fast, effective techniques, there's no denying that corners were cut and great ideas were left unexplored because I had to make a video in a timely manner. For better or for worse, that's just the way things have to be on YouTube. The eyes were way too white and normal looking. The skin was dull. The metals were pretty basic. There were ugly mold lines everywhere. Inside the mouth, although hard to see, it's pretty much totally unpainted. The whole model was lacking contrast and quite dark, and I feel I can say this because it's mine and I'm not going to get offended, it wasn't painted particularly well. It was a one-day rush job, and it shows. And also, the day that I actually spent painting the model was also the day that my ex and I had our final couples therapy session. The day where we basically agreed that that was that, and we were going to separate, co-parent the kids, and go our own ways. So, as you can imagine, this model gives me some pretty mixed emotions. Now, it certainly helped my mental well-being at a pretty dark time that this video did really well in its launch week, and has continued to do well even now, but I think that the time has come to finally give this ugly little dude the makeover he deserves, and try to win one of the world's most prestigious painting competitions with it, and ultimately, say goodbye to it. Sounds like a lot to cover, huh? Well, grab a coffee, get comfy, and come along for the journey. Now, where to begin on repainting this infamous tank? I've already mentioned a few of its obvious failings, but if I stand a chance of winning or even placing at the Salute 2024 painting competition, I'm gonna need some expert help.
Why is it that the finest guys in the world never leave the house?
That's because we were painting Warhammer.
If you use Instagram and have even a passing interest in Warhammer, you will have seen one of these hilarious posts by Mamikon. Mamikon isn't just a top-notch meme machine, he's also a top-tier artist, a miniature painter with 8 Golden Demon wins, 70 finalist pins, and a stack of commended entry cards thick enough to stabilise even the wobbliest dining table. Also, as an added bonus, he lives in London, which is only an hour's drive away from Colchester. Well, unless, you know, you want to drive on a road in the UK, so it took about 3 hours, but at least the weather was nice. And with a Nurgle Land Raider unceremoniously plopped in a cardboard box, tucked up safely in my daughter's car seat, snuggled up to her favourite baby doll, we made it to Mamikon HQ. After spending a good hour or so drooling over his incredible display case, which is crammed so full of jaw-droppingly painted minis you could probably fill a pretty reasonably sized private gallery, we got down to the serious business of critically examining the butthole tank, the winking horror, the landrussy, whatever you want to call it. And while he was very complimentary to the creativity and speed at which I'd made the thing originally, Mamikon basically confirmed my suspicions. The painting was decent but lackluster, and certainly not competition worthy in its current state, but with a few tweaks and some quality time refining the paint job, he felt pretty confident that such a bizarre, striking model could wow the judges enough to get me a coveted Salute painting award. He gave me some tips and tricks, recommended some cool products and techniques to use, helped me write up a list of areas to improve, scheduled a catch-up meeting for 2 weeks' time, and sent me on my way. Now at that point in time, Hattie and I were working on our collaborative Great Unclean One build, making a greater demon of Nurgle the size of a Warlord Titan from scratch, so the rest of that week was spent mostly sculpting and carving out that monstrosity for that particular episode, and then I made a quick video about easy metallic paint methods to bridge the gap in the video schedule while I worked on repainting this nasty tank. Yeah, as I said, you gotta crank out the content if you want to play the YouTube game. So essentially 1 week left to paint this before Mamikon's back to inspect my work, and we head to Salute the next day. So that basically means I should have about 30 hours or so of real painting time to get this ready for the competition. For starters, let's remove all of the ugly mould lines on the model. These are places where the two halves of the mould that made the plastic part press together, and they often leave a little seam behind that raises up from the surface. I was quite hasty in my original build and didn't remove them very cleanly, and the judges will obviously think this looks pretty amateurish and lazy, so off they come. While I'm on the remodelling and fixing stage, I'm also going to add some extra teeth to the mouth to make it look a bit less human and a bit more demonic, cutting up some random parts I found in my bits box to give me some pretty good pointy looking teeth to work with. I used my little wow stick drill to perform some backstreet dentistry on the teeth to make them look a bit more rotten and damaged, and then fix some of the new sharp teeth in place with the old PVA and superglue trick to create an instant torn, visceral, fleshy look.
The big book of British smiles.
That's enough! That's enough!
Oh yeah, the inside is pretty much unpainted, so let's fix that. It'll be really awkward to try and paint inside the mouth without hitting the teeth all the time, so let's carve out a new service entrance. A rotary tool makes quick work of the base plate, and now I can access the internal parts. See? Totally unpainted. I told you this was a rush job. When I originally made this, I thought it would be a cool idea to give it a tongue, or at least a sculpted mouth with a throat to peer into, but I'd already made the mouth at that point and it would have been really tricky. But now I've got a new hole to work in. I reckon it's going to be doable. I scrumpled up some aluminium foil until it was vaguely tongue-shaped, and then blocked off the back of the tank from the front with some heavy cardstock. And for the front, to sit behind the tongue and add some extra visual detail, I cut out another section of card to paint a gross demonic throat. Black first, then some reds, pinks, purples, off-whites, to give the illusion of a nasty, gaping maw. I'm not sure how much of this will be visible, but the judges will look everywhere, so better safe than sorry. Now, that was the end of the first day's painting. First on the next day's agenda was going to be making the eyes look way, way grosser. And in a weird twist of fate, my son got conjunctivitis, so couldn't go to daycare that day. So instead of spending the first part of the day painting gross, gunky eyeballs, I had to spend that time looking after a toddler with gross, gunky eyeballs. That did give me some pretty amazing reference for painting realistic bloodshot gunky eyes though, so blessing in disguise? This aspect was one of the most commented on things in the original video. The eyes just looked too clean and fresh for such a horrible, pained, monstrous model. So all the eyes got some gross, stringy, reddy, purple blood vessels painted on with my tiniest brushes. I painted the inside of the tank a very deep, blacky, purpley red, using all and every hole I could find on the model for access, and then, after it was nice and dry, I repainted the gross glue skin mix around the new teeth with the same bruisey, rotting flesh tone I had on my palette. Hang on a second, it's Dave. Hey matey, how's it going, you alright?
Hey guy, you were gonna put a Rapstar promo in your video, right? You didn't forget, did you?
No, it's all taken care of. Yeah, okay, bye. Ravaged Star is a brand new sci-fi tabletop wargame from the legends over at Mini Wargaming. It has amazing models. It's a pretty new game, so it just has 3 factions at the moment, but they are awesome. You've got the Veil Touched, a chaotic bunch of super warriors in twisted power armor, the Imari, elite, advanced techie space dwarves, and the Gorkog, your classic insectoid ferocious alien type. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't personally tried the game yet, but I've watched Matt and Dave play some test games and it seems like it's going to be a really fun experience. But the thing that really hooks me on this stuff is the models. They seem so perfect for newcomers to the hobby. Everything comes pre-assembled. They're made of incredibly durable plastic that's very hard to break, and they're absolutely packed with fun textures and details which make them really easy to paint using beginner-friendly techniques like dry brushing or contrast paints, or a bit of both. Now, these were all part of a massively successful but ended Kickstarter, but now the pledge manager for those campaigns is open for everyone, even if you missed out on the original campaign. So get your pre-orders in for box games, army bundles, even if it's just a squad or two. They're all amazing value, especially when compared to the bigger brands in the industry, and if you use the link in the description or pinned in the comments, they'll know that I sent you their way, which is nice, because I love those guys and I want to put a smile on their faces. Right, where was I? Time to give everything a quick coat of matte varnish to unify the reflectivity on all the areas so I can more clearly see what's going on for the repaint, and also give the paint something to stick to on the areas I filed down to remove the mold lines. This did frost up the eyes, but don't worry, when we add some gloss varnish later it should make them clear and shiny again. One of the things Mamikon highly recommended was to apply some transfers to the tank's armor plates and weather them so they look ancient. Now, this Chaos transfer set is a bit cartoony and bold for what I had in mind, kind of too tattoo designy, but on the newer 2018 Chaos transfer set there's these cool word bearer designs with archaic, mysterious text. I reckon they'll look great if they're subtly placed. I also applied some Milliput to the new tongue and textured it with a ball of rolled up foil. Nasty. Next up, let's add some vibrancy to the colours. The dead, grey looking skin is pretty cool, but it honestly looks almost monotone grayscale next to other models, so to get noticed in the competition I'm going to need it to pop a bit more. I mixed up a more intense but still gross flesh tone and carefully applied it in lots of thin layers to hide any subpar areas on the skin I wasn't happy with, and also to base coat the areas I'd filed off to remove the mould lines. Mamikon said that judges tend to love painted on texture, as it shows a real level of artistry and brush control, and that really elevates a paint job to the next level. So I stippled on some slightly lightened versions of the skin tone I'd previously airbrushed, and sketched on manual highlights on the muscles and visceral parts. Now, go on, be honest with yourself. When you woke up this morning, did you think to yourself you'd be watching a weird British nerd paint a realistic diseased butthole today? Oh, you did? Okay then. Anyway, lighter paints tend to look really stark when you apply them, but these are so diluted they'll dry down really subtly. So here you can see a comparison of what a difference this makes, on the first side with no painted on texture, and the second side with the first few layers. Yeah, looks great. Happy with the colour and the effect, I just spent the next hour or so going around the whole model adding more textures, lighter and lighter, until I was happy. I also added some to the gums. This is obviously very stark right now, but we're going to put on lots of goopy layers over this, so we want it to be quite high contrast at the moment, as it will get masked quite a lot later. I also revisited all the highlights on the gross wormy tentacle bits, making the lines more pronounced and vibrant, and painting on some areas around the fleshy bits to make it look like the organic areas were kind of more realistically growing out of the tank, rather than just, being there, stuck on, if you know what I mean. I then mixed this quite rich, warm blue colour into my flesh tone, thinned it loads, and painted on some very translucent veins to make the skin look as painful as possible. The colour will also work quite well to wash in some really bruised, disgusting bits in the open wounds and deep creases. And then just a very few light but very thin highlights on the top-facing, most reflective parts of the arms, really detailing those veins and muscle groups. I also base coated the new teeth with this off-white too. Now, time to make the metal armor a bit more interesting, with some buffing of various dark, rich metallic paints, hardly any paint on the brush except for the places I needed to apply a full base coat on the raw plastic from filing away the lines. This is also the perfect time to start painting over, hiding and damaging the transfers I applied before to make them fit the vibe of the model better. Now, let's get this tongue painted. A reddy purple base coat, dry brushed with some pinks and flesh tones mixed, and then a nice mix of vibrant green and sickly khaki, thinned really heavily and painted on all over. A liquid layer of gross yeasty goodness onto the tongue surface, wiping away the excess, and then dotting on some more intentional bits a bit thicker to make the infection look a bit worse. I then used this lovely pink contrast paint to reinforce the painful cracks and crevices in the tongue. Now, I'm not sure how much of this you're going to see when it's all in place, but yeah, we're going all in, right? After that was dry, a heavy coat of gloss varnish to make it look wet and goopy. I have to say, when I was a kid, I would have never imagined my job would involve painting diseased tongues for thousands and thousands of people to watch on the internet, not even in my wildest dreams. Yet, here we are. And while we're elbows deep in the gross zone, let's mix a tiny bit of this orangey effect paint with some gloss varnish to create a slightly yellow disease glaze for the eyes and any other nasty bits that need a bit of yellowing. I mixed a couple of grimy contrast paints, thinned them heavily, and then stippled on layers of this wash onto the armor panels to make them a bit darker and add even more layers of grime, and sunk them into any recesses that weren't already dark enough. I also stippled on some of this mix with a fine brush to look like poop spatters and nasty pockmarks. Right, that tongue is dry, so let's see what it looks like in place. Oh, Jesus. What have I done? I inserted the tongue, flipped the tank over, and squished a bit of air dry clay under the tongue to hold it in place. The tongue's so huge I won't even be able to see that throat piece I painted after all. Oh well. Now, believe it or not, I'm getting to the end of Mamikon's list of improvements now. Some sponging of lighter metallics over the more prominent bits like the gun barrels, and now let's add some more fresh gore effects with this blood red effect paint. I also mixed this with some gloss varnish to give the eyes another coat of disease. And that's the end of day 2, just one painting day left to get this thing competition ready. Time to close the underside. I rummaged around for some plasticard, but I don't have any right now, so I cut down one of these little promo cards I sign and send to the crazy people who want a picture of my face, and then stuck it guy side down to the bottom of the tank, and then painted over it to match the surrounding metal. Now, I quite like the idea of someone accidentally dropping and breaking it open in 100 years' time, only to find my stupid face staring up at them from the inside. Right, let's do some more finishing touches. Some soft, fleshy pinks, very thin, to build up the painted-on rings on the wormy tentacles, and some lighter, tighter, shiny streaks just on the top-facing areas of said wormy bits. Now, the previous paint job made good use of dirty down rust, but after 2 years of being displayed in the window of my local Warhammer shop in Colchester, the rust had changed quite a lot after being exposed to UV. Mamikon recommended this stuff, AK Light Rust Wash, a more colour-fast replacement. It doesn't really work in the same way, but it does add a realistic, washed-out, light rusty patina wherever you apply it, and has very low surface tension, so it seeks out all the cracks and crevices. While I waited for that to dry, I slapped yet another coat of gloss varnish on the eyes to make them extra shiny and gungy, and then went back to the rust sections with some brown and orange paints to manually shape them a bit more, using the brown to knock back the effect and dull it where it was a bit too washy, and adding orange to make hotter, more vibrant areas where I thought it was needed. And then I went back to the AK Rust Wash to blend everything back into itself, making the rust areas look a bit more cohesive. And oh yeah, guess what? Mamikon's here. A bit earlier than expected. I wanted to get some gungy strands of slime on the model before the big reveal, but I guess we're doing it right now.
Nice.
It was a very cool piece already, but we wanted to find a couple of things that could be improved quite easily that would make the piece a lot cooler, and I'm very happy to say that Guy has succeeded in implementing all of that feedback. Overall, the effect is quite amazing and scary and disgusting, which is exactly what you want in a piece like this. I'm very proud of Guy. I think the piece now looks at least 2 times better, so I am really hoping that it will do very well at the competition.
Yes, this sounds like it's all going to plan. Let's quickly slap on some gross slimy bits before I have to pack it up for the competition tomorrow. It's a classic method nowadays. Yoo-hoo glue, mixed with a bit of blood for the blood god, smushed around and then stretched and drawn between any areas you want to look absolutely revolting. You can also just use the Yoo-hoo glue on its own to make some pretty nasty, sloppy, stringy spit strands if that's your bag. It's definitely my bag, so here we go, baby! Final touch, add some thin dots of blood for the blood god to some of the strands of goo to make some bloody blobs. Well, there's loads of sentences in a row that I never thought I'd say in front of loads of people, but here we are again, and I think it's done. If the original Body Horror Land Raider YouTube video was the cinematic release, this is the director's cut. This is how I imagined the model in my mind's eye when I originally had the idea. So it's been an absolute pleasure to spend a few extra days giving this monstrosity a nice visual revamp. Let's pack this bad boy up in, I don't really have that many carry cases, almost none in fact, so a cardboard box with some soft lining in it.
Ooh, safe.
Now I just need to fill in the Salute competition entry form. Now it wasn't just me entering either. Hattie also entered her amazing Warhammer Fantasy Dragon that she painted on the channel last year, and Alex from 52 Miniatures, who was visiting the UK and staying with me over the weekend of the event, also entered this amazingly vibrant little diorama. So next day, Salute. My first time at this event. It was never really on my radar because I'd assumed it was mostly just historical stuff, and as some of you already know, I'm not that interested in historical wargaming, but I was really pleasantly surprised to see how much other stuff there was to see and do there. I won't go too deep on the event itself in this video, as Alex and I covered that pretty thoroughly in the first episode of the Midwinter Minis podcast. Check out that tasty link that just popped up if you've got a couple of hours to kill and you're hobbying, but it's basically a really nicely set out one-day event in London with loads of weird and wonderful stalls selling pretty much everything hobby related you could imagine. Anyway, right at the start we entered our minis into the painting competition, and then Steve, Ant, Hattie and I basically wandered around seeing where the wind took us. We met loads of awesome people, fans of the channel, other content creators, fantastic stores and hobby brands that we've come to know really just online, but seeing all of these people in the flesh and chatting to them face to face is just amazing. Miniature wargaming, especially the building and painting aspect, can be a really solitary pastime. So events like this are really special. They make you feel like you're actually part of something and not just a Billy No-Mates spending hours and hours by yourself. And yeah, I know, painting competition. 4 o'clock, time for the award ceremony, and you're never going to believe this. I didn't win. I didn't even place. Neither did Steve from Little Plastic People, who has previously won a Golden Demon and absolutely cleaned house at last year's Salute. Not even a you made the cut card. Hattie got nothing. Alex got nothing. Mamikon got nothing. Absolutely brutal, but the competition was ridiculously fierce, with some veteran industry legends entering some seriously astounding models. And this year, for some reason, there weren't any bronze awards, just first and second place in each category, but hey ho, that's just the way it goes sometimes. My pal Matt did win a silver though, so I'm super happy for him. There's loads and loads of stuff I'd love to tell you about Salute and the awesome fun we had afterwards, but this video is plenty long already and I've got something pretty big to talk about. Announce, maybe? I'm getting rid of this tank. As I already mentioned in the video, cool as this thing is, it has some weirdly painful associations for me and reminds me of a really unpleasant time in my life. So I'm going to be raffling this tank with You Could Win, which is a very legit UK-based raffle company that's done loads of Warhammer Army raffling in the past. And if you want a chance to win this, tickets are just £2 each. Now just a heads up, for legal reasons, this has to be a UK-only competition. Raffles are pretty strict that way, but don't let that stop you from asking UK-based friends and family to enter on your behalf if you live somewhere else. Also, whoever wins this tank, I will personally come to you and give you this tank. And, you know, if we're spending the afternoon or evening together, we can play 40k or just hang out, whatever you want. Now, I've personally donated and also fundraised a considerable amount of money for various charities over the course of this channel's history, and while I would love to say I'm doing the same thing for this, I've just been told that the landlords of the property that I rent, that I live in and work in, want to sell up. So it looks like I'm going to be moving again for the third time in 3 years, and just being honest here, that's tough. It's tough on me, it's tough on the channel, it's tough on my kids. I would absolutely love to escape the rental market and try to buy somewhere I can call my own. So yeah, I hate to sound mercenary, but that's where my priorities are at the moment. So anything that helps me build up a deposit would be incredibly helpful. So check out the link in the description if you want to buy some raffle tickets to win this thing, and good luck. Now, if you are chance averse and prefer to guarantee you get something for your money, we've also just restocked the Midwinter Minis merch store with some classic logo t-shirts, as well as an awesome sticker set with transparent backing. Very fun indeed. There's also 100 of these absolutely sick illustrated A3 prints designed by my pal Remouse and hand numbered and signed by me. Also, only for the week after this video is released, the other 2 prints we have in stock on the store will be half price, just in case you want to bundle them with anything you're ordering too. I also have 4 incredibly important things I'd like to give thanks for, so just hold off on hitting the play next button just for a second and humour me. First off, obviously, massive thanks to Mamikon for sharing his time and experience and helping me get the best results I could on this nightmare tank. Mamikon, if you're watching, thank you. You're awesome. Please go check out his Patreon page. I truly can't think of many other people who can teach so well and have the accolades to prove their skill. Now second, I obviously can't mention Patreon without thanking the small army of supporters we have on that platform too. This channel honestly wouldn't exist without you all, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And a warm welcome to our most recent signups. Circus of Damned, Robin Ruska, George Vincent, Owen Roberts, Carl Canova, Nico the Black Templar, Jason Guy, Jonathan Johansson, Ross, Half Pound Butter, Stinky Orc, Anthony 93, Bits of Wargaming, Big Sigh, Steph Van Lynn, Danny Webster, Jack Samson, Dat Boy Pinky, Tralex, Jamie Lee, Honey Badger ZW, Mindy Koch, A Swift Bass, or Bass, Nicholas Hatton, Elizabeth Dent, Melvin Hairstrom, and Tom Plunkett. Third, huge thanks to RAVAGED staff for sponsoring this video. If you like awesome sci-fi minis and big bundles for great prices, you owe it to yourself to check out that link and see if anything takes your fancy, because almost every single thing does for me. And finally, thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the like button if you haven't already. I think it used to make a really big difference to videos back in the day, but these days with YouTube, who the f knows? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.